in. Whether you're joining us live today or you're just catching up on replay, we're really pleased that you could join us. I'm Ashley and I'll be hosting today's webinar, and this is my co-host Abby. These Lunch and Learn webinars cover a range of different topics and just give you some practical advice that can help your business go further. Today we're covering the weird and wonderful world of influencer marketing, and we are joined by Rick Guttridge, who is the Managing Director of the hugely successful Smoke and Gun PR. With over 15 years experience, Rick has helped build and protect the reputations of some of the most noticeable and well-known consumer brands such as Red Bull, Jaguar and Persil. So Rick, thank you so much for joining us.
My pleasure. Hi.
Right, so we'll just jump back right in. Rick, can you give us a kind of brief overview on influencer marketing, where it came from, what it is? I think it's a little bit of a confusing topic for some people.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it's an industry and a part of the sort of marketing communications mix at the moment that's a massive hot topic, a buzz topic. It's making into the mainstream news when you're seeing people appearing on sort of BBC's flagship show, such as Strictly Come Dancing, who are an influencer from YouTube. You can see that it's got through to the kind of mainstream. But really, influencer marketing, the way most people refer to it these days, is actually working with people who've built up a key following on social media channel or number of channels, whether a blogger purely focusing on Instagram or New Kid on the Block TikTok, to actually have influence amongst an audience. I guess as a sort of PR practitioner touching on 20 years experience, in the olden days we used to call them key opinion leaders, and it had nothing to do with social media because social media wasn't around. It was people who actually had influence around a certain topic or could influence an audience group by being a key analyst or a leader, a thought leader in a particular sort of expert niche, etc. And obviously that's kind of changed with the advent of social media and the democratization of the internet and the way that people can build up their own following. We start to see the rise and rise of money bloggers and fashion bloggers and all these kind of different niches. And the sort of term influencer marketing has really been coined on how to work with those people from usually from a brand perspective to try and either change perceptions, or often it's about trying to shift sales of consumer goods via tapping into these people's audiences. But what actually is an influencer is quite up for debate. There's lots of different categories and criteria. Someone who's already famous and influencer in their own right, such as, I don't know, a sports person or an actor, they've built up credibility for what they do separately, and then they've got a big social media following typically because of what they already do. Someone who gets thrust into the limelight via appearing on Love Island or Big Brother, or whatever it might have been over the years, and they're a reality TV star, and suddenly he's building that audience purely on the basis that they've been on the TV show, and their audience is very much linked to the audience's appeal to that kind of show. And then you've got the kind of organic influencer who's decided to start blogging or producing content on a topic that they're interested in. So get back to the mummy blogger type person or whatever it might be, who's built up slowly, organically built up a following and an audience based on the good quality content that they're actually producing, that people want to follow, that want to interact with and kind of, see and involve. So there's different ways that people can sort of become an influencer within that social. And today I think we're really just talking about the social media kind of influencer part of it. But there's different ways that people have kind of got that status, and therefore the impact that they have on their fans and their followers can be quite different as well.
That's great. So given that it is such a huge marketing tool at the minute, why should businesses be considering using influencer marketing in their plans?
I think with all sort of tools and channels, it has to be, you have to take a step back and don't rush into channels and think about using influencers for the sake of it, or because your competitors are, or because it's the buzzword at the minute. And a lot of people fall into those traps of wanting to do something, but not necessarily thinking about what the objective is, how do they measure it, what the activity should be. I think it's about 69% of brands are now using influencers. Obviously, lots of different stats by different people, so you can find a myriad of stats to support anything. But still, around a third of UK consumers don't actually trust influencers. I think that's trust and authenticity is kind of key. And if you're going to use as a brand or a business or an organisation, charity, whoever it's going to be, you need to align yourselves very carefully with who you want to use an influencer, and thinking, well, who is their actual audience? Because just going for vanity measures such as their follower numbers and their follower count, is meaningless. It's better to work with someone who's got potentially a smaller number of fans and smaller audience that's actually engaged in the topic that's relevant to you, rather than just shooting for a Kardashian, millions of followers that's just about the celebrity world and what they got to do with your, whatever it might be, your particular brand or niche topics. So finding the people who really care about those areas, is the real driving force for brands to find the right people.
What about from a business to business perspective? Do you think, influencer marketing still has a role to play in that setting?
Absolutely. I think B2B, it's just finding the right influencers again. So whether that's heads of networks, people who are thought leaders, white paper developers, thought tanks, think tanks rather, finding the right kind of people who are sort of niche experts in the areas that you want to sort of work with and influence. It's understanding who your audience is, and what the topics are that interest them and their audience, and how that aligns to yourself as a business or organisation. What do you want to be known for? What stories, what information do you want out there, and how can these influencers actually credibly, really important, credibly help to convey that story in an authentic manner, so you're not just plastering someone on there. These people aren't walking billboards. You're not just sticking it's not a sandwich board up and down the street and someone's walking advertising something. They built up an audience and a following because of their expertise, as I say, unless it's the reality TV style, which is a slightly different thing. They built up an audience. And for the B2B side of it, it's finding the right people who've got that knowledge and credibility. And in kind of more traditional sort of PR models and PR types, where you might have aligned with a key opinion leader, a celebrity, before the use of influencer, it was about how do they help you convey your story in an interesting way and potentially open different media channels. Now with the channels we're talking about, are the social media channels, so you actually looking at people who built that following in there, in the right way that's of interest. So it equally works for B2B. You've just got to find the right people and understand, as I say, what your objectives are and what the audience wants to hear.
And thinking about the practical process, in the early stages of executing this, how would businesses identify and reach out to influencers they wanted to work with?
Yeah, it's a great question, and there's not one different way. There's 1,000,001 different tools out there to help you find influencers. There's obviously the sort of free man-hour ways of looking around. You Google search, you're searching on Twitter, depending what channel you want to be on, of course. Obviously LinkedIn is such a powerful tool for the B2B side of things. But equally, we've used Facebook really well in the past for B2B clients as well. Sort of getting out the right people producing the right content. So you've got to do your research to find. Well, first of all, you've got to understand for yourself, what is it that you want to convey, what messages, what story, what is it that you want to get out there. If influencers are then part of that mix to give you that third party sort of extension to your team, before you even find the influencers, you've got to think, what is it that you want them to do? Are you going to give them a creative brief and ask them to help tell your story in their own unique manner? And that's, for me, that's what works most authentically, rather than just giving them content or really, really tight guidelines of what they have to produce, because then it's not in their own authentic voice. And again, the reason you want to find these people is because they have got a voice that's relevant to the audience. We do a lot of deep social listening to find the conversations around the topics, and kind of work back from the topics and who's actually driving that, driving those topics of conversation, rather than just starting with who's an influencer who's talked about topic ones and who's got the most followers, because not the follower count's less important to us. It's making those nodes and those connections and who's actually driving the conversation to and from it. It's often people with lower numbers of followers who are more involved in conversations. So you, as I say, you can either use the social network tools themselves and use their search facilities. You can be starting to find someone who is an influencer and who else people follow them from. There's a whole lot of tools you can use out there if you've got budget to do it as well. And then it's really about, there's a combination of trying to automate that, and then the human element of it, of actually digging into it, finding what feels right. Does it feel a good fit? For your brand, does their audience, do they portray themselves in a way that is fitting? If you were going to take them into an advertising camp, would this person be right to kind of be the face or voice, or would you get them to stand up, go on the 6 o'clock news and talk for your brand? And if the answer is no, then why the hell would you use them in social media as an influencer as well? So you've just got to apply lots of layers of filters to kind of think, are they relevant? Are they credible? Are they authentic? Are they a good fit? Is their audience a fit? And then you start to approach them and think about, well, what is it that we actually want them to do? How are we going to engage with them? And see if they're interested. Obviously, it's a two-way street of whether the influencer's interested as well.
There's one thing we definitely need to ask you about is, that over the past few years, there have been some significant high-profile influencer marketing blunders. In some cases, they've led to a lack of consumer trust in that person. In other cases, it's even been as bad as, in criminal investigations. So if you are a business looking to delve into influencer marketing, what can you do to protect yourself against it?
Yeah, there's been some really embarrassing situations, and they will continue. Obviously, the Advertising Standards Authority and the Competitions and Market Authority continuing to evolve the guidelines and the rules. And there was just a piece earlier this week on the BBC. I think it's Pretty Little Thing, the fashion brand, that just kind of got pulled up on a post that Molly May from Love Island did. So she's a paid brand ambassador. And they ruled that a post she did pre-Christmas about being winter ready or autumn ready, and tagged in Pretty Little Thing into her post about a jacket, but it was just posted as an organic post. There was no actual signpost as being hashtag ad or hashtag spon, or letting people know. As a paid ambassador, they've ruled that was unlawful, and they've been censored for that. So there's that kind of falling foul of the law in terms of the mechanics of, if you're paying people, it's got to be clear. The audience should clearly see that actually that person has been paid, or been paid in kind, or in some manner to actually do that, as opposed to just organically liking something and wanting to share it because you've discovered a brand or a product and kind of gone out there. So that's an important thing once you're working with people. But I think you've also got to be very clear and get a signed contract in place with the influencers, or creators, as a lot of them are calling themselves as well. Now they're trying to move away from that influencer term because of some of the scandals and things that you've rightly touched on there. But it's understanding for them, what is it that you want to do? What's the sign-off process? What kind of content? When do they need to do it by? What's the creative guidelines and sort of structure? Both sides got to be absolutely clear on what you're trying to achieve together. It's that collaborative process, really. That's how it works best. You're trying to not be too prescriptive in terms of exactly the look and feel of what they've got to do, because you say they've got to do it in their own style, but kind of giving them some freedom to kind of do stuff. And for me, that works best as well when it's a bit of a long-term partnership between a brand and the influencer, because they get to know each other, they get to really build up that mutual trust and understanding, the respect. I think the audience, the end user who's following the influencer, will start to see obviously some more regular posts, and even if it's quite sporadic, just over a period of time, you're building up the sort of the layers of the onion. So from the brand's perspective of working with that influencer, it's not just kind of one or two hit wonder and sort of moving on to the next person, so having a deeper piece there. But yeah, getting all that sort of agreed in a contract, it's there in writing, knowing what people stand for. We ask influencers on behalf of clients to sign a pledge that they've not knowingly bought any followers, done anything against the sort of the rules of the different channels in terms of fake followers, bots, all that kind of stuff. Knowingly inflating their media value, because again, or their media pack, because they're also developing their media pack to talk about the numbers and things. And really, it's about working with those guys as well to think about ways of measurement, because again, as I say, a lot of brands jump into this and not knowing really what they want to achieve. But is it about web traffic? Is it about sort of genuine interactions? How are we actually going to measure this? Are there different tools that we can use? Are there different UTM tracker codes from Google to get people out there? Is it about actually dark posts and sort of dark social and getting people to share things with a very intimate number of people? Or is it about public posts and etc.? So actually understanding what you want to achieve from the start is really important, and then understanding how the target audience of taking that messaging in, and the target audiences kind of responded to that. So some of it can be the sort of sentiment analysis of the post and the interactions and what people are saying. Some of it can be action taken. You can do some very low cost dipping in and out sort of survey stuff online to kind of see what the reaction is to some of the posts and things. So there's ways of trying to check people's understanding without having to do big in-depth sort of expensive research pieces as well, to kind of see how those campaigns are working.
That's great. I know you touched on it at the beginning of your answer there, Rick. Thanks very much. In terms of regulations, obviously being transparent with the consumer and letting them know that an ad is an ad. Are there any other regulations that you think somebody would need to consider when going down this route of influencer marketing?
I think you've got to think it's a global campaign as well, because there's different rules in different markets. So, America and Europe will have different rules to the kind of UK. You've got different rules if you're running promotions and giveaways, because just as in any marketing, there's rules around those. Are they random prizes? Is it a skill? But so you've got to make sure that you're compliant in terms of those things. And then even not from a sort of legal perspective, but from a Google perspective in terms of bloggers and putting links, and whether it's a no follow link or a follow link, because from a blog we're working with a brand and things, so you've got to make sure you're not falling foul of the Google police as well as the actual kind of authority. So there are a whole host, too many different things to go through on a quick chat here. So you do need to make sure you are compliant. The main obvious ones are, if you're paying and working with influencers, making sure that every post is clearly signposted. As I say, hashtag ad, hashtag spawn, hashtag sponsored are the kind of key ones that people tend to use, and that has to go across all the different posts, to indicate and make it clear to their followers that that person has received remuneration in one form or another to work with the brand.
Well, another thing that we wanted to ask you about was the fact that there seems to be a trend at the minute, a shift of businesses working more closely with micro-influencers, so people have a smaller audience but who are more engaged, and we were wondering whether you had any thoughts on why this was happening.
Yeah, I think we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier, and it's around that. It's about the deeper knowledge and the authenticity that those people have around a key topic. So I'm trying to think of an example of one that we've been doing lately, but we looking around the subject of sleep, for example. So working with Silent Night Beds, and we've done some big in-depth listening and looked at sort of close to 1 million data points across social around people's conversations around sleep, bed buying, etc., to kind of really understand drivers to purchase. And trying to make this a more commercially relevant and strategic piece of insight from social listening, just opposed to a sort of quick sentiment look at what people think of brands and things that you can kind of automate on the tools. But it's really pulling all that info out to those with the open API and then digging into that data, and then really looking into who are the people who are continually, as you say, driving that conversation, interacting between others, stimulating conversation beyond just their own post. And when you start to kind of map those people out via sort of follower numbers and things, often it is that most people do have smaller follower count. It's only sort of less than 1% who've got the millions of followers and stuff. They are the very small number. So the vast majority of people are sort of in that mid to lower end anyway. But when you start looking at the volume of the conversation around those key topics, that's where you get the real value in working with those people, because they are they are consistently talking about that particular topic. So therefore they are more authentic and more likely to spread your content and your story in a way that actually goes further. So just working with someone with a big follower count, particularly if it's an organic post anyway, so you're going to see a small percentage of their followers. And if they're only a small percentage of their followers are actually interested in your topic, you're hardly reaching anyone. So it's better to be starting off with a smaller number who are more engaged. And I think that's what people have sort of come to realise. And these things change all the time, because as the social media channels change their algorithms, as they change what's working, that's why this kind of area can be confusing for people. It changes fast. You're at the whim of, as I say, any kind of update, algorithm change, never mind the regulatory side of it, just the actual channels themselves. And clearly the channels are doing stuff all the time to increase commercialise their usage, and hence the decreasing reach of organic posts over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and pushing people to that kind of more and more paid to play approach. And I think we're going to see TikTok's increasingly commercialising itself now as the kind of younger one, and the features that change. Obviously, Instagram's changing features and creating new things, reels and things to kind of mimic what TikTok are doing, because they don't want to lose audience share to that younger audience. So that kind of it's a combination of the social media channels changing the post types and the way of kind of finding influencers, which again is becoming more transparent on Instagram with new things that they're trying and rolling out there to help find people who are relevant for brands to post to. So It's an ever-changing world.
I feel like as well, the bigger the audience is, the more people are just looking for a scandal. People look for, like, is it contradictory? Is it, you know, politically incorrect? Whereas they're not actually seeing the product or the promotion in it.
Yeah, no, it can be true. I think the best kind of partnerships are the kind of content that it just feels naturally as part of their content that's coming out, and you kind of, the brand's almost inside it, you know, and it's not overly sort of pushed. Then people aren't kind of seeing that. I think some of the forced things that you kind of see can go wrong. And there's the blogger last year with Listerine that, you know, again blew up and went into the mainstream, because when we kind of honed in on a photo and stuff, and stack of pancakes and things in the background, things that actually weren't pancakes. It was all kind of fake, staged life, and, you know, so things like that went, you know, go wrong because it wasn't authentic. You know, it was trying to overly present a fake worldview, you know, of their life, but it bit them in the bum.
That's great.
Yeah. So is there anything else you want to share with us? If anyone's got any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and if you put them in after, we can get them over to Rick by email. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think, you know, for people who are looking at influencer marketing as part of their strategy into 2020, which a lot of people are, you know, it's think right and start. What part of your business objective is this going to help to accomplish? What part of your marketing and communications objectives is this going to help to accomplish? How are you going to measure it? Know at the start what you're trying to achieve, and then think about what the measures are to kind of get in there. Make sure you're working with people who are an authentic fit. You know, as I said, I think that's really important. Don't just be got to find people who their content and their style and their voice is a credible, authentic fit with you, or else it can really go wrong. And then when you start producing content, be compliant. You know, don't be the ones who get caught out and sort of get fined, etc. And I think, you know, as I say, you're choosing to kind of align yourself, your brand, your organisation with someone. So you just think carefully. You know, as I say, as if they were coming to present to your biggest stakeholders, would this person be, you know, someone relevant that you would kind of choose? And if the answer is no, then you probably shouldn't be using them on you know, on a social campaign as well.
That's absolutely great, Rick. Thank you so much. I feel far more informed about influence marketing. Still terrified of it, but yeah, definitely know more about it. So thank you very much for joining us today and taking the time. Thank you to Abby, my lovely co-host, and for Claude Kelly for producing this podcast. If anybody has any questions, feel free to follow us on @WeAreUmi Network, or give us an email at letstalk@weareumi.co.uk. Okay, thanks very much. All right, bye, Rick.
If there's need anything else, just come back to me.
Okay,
yeah, if there's any bits that don't work, it's no problem just to jump back and record something. Just let me know.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot. Thanks for your time. Cheers.
Bye.
Take care. Bye.